Okay, we're live. So I'm live on TikTok. My name is Eric Leo 108. I'm a sociologist, philosopher, and hip hop artist with schizoaffective disorder. I have a degree in sociology. I live on disability, and I'm gonna tell you in this live why I hate America. In the small video right here, you'll see why more Americans are going child free, and I'm just going to explain what's happening in the American economy so you can get a good idea of like what's happening and why I hate America and think it's a piece of shit. That's why I'm doing this commentary.
We got married fairly young, and we both just decided for many reasons we didn't want kids. And then at some point we heard the acronym DINK, and I think just really fell in love with it.
There are more.
So I do annual update of like my take on American economic and political system. You can go to farminghumans.com. That'll take you to my blog, which will take you to the latest 2023 post that talks about American inequality.
For Americans that are deciding not to have children, and it's purposeful.
This new trend has led to the rise of a new type of household, more commonly referred to as DINKs, dual.
Okay, so this is the PG version. Like, they won't tell you how it got to the point where most people are not having kids because they can't afford it, or the biggest reason for not having kids is that they can't afford it. This is the PG version. They won't tell you how it got to the point where you can't afford to have kids. What they don't tell you is couples aren't having kids because they can't afford it. That's the reason. Healthcare, housing, education, and childcare are all unaffordable. We have a privatized healthcare system. We pay the most out of any country, but we have mediocre results, and it's privatized. It just makes corporations a lot of money. Again, corporations are buying up all the houses, which is driving prices up, and we don't have enough houses to fill the demand. The price of a house down payment is now higher than the yearly annual salary earned, average annual salary earned. So people can't afford houses. They can't afford, and you have to rent, and rent is going up. Education, people can't afford college education. These are avenues to wealth that you used to be able to take to be able to better your situation, but now you can't do it because it costs too much. And education is like $40,000 per year. You're hundreds of $1,000s into debt, and you can't start a business with all this debt. And then childcare, you can't have kids because by the time they talk about it in here, by the time you have kids and pay for childcare, it takes your whole check. So you can't afford to live in America because everything is designed to make corporations money.
Come, no kids.
Oh yeah, dual income, no kids. That's...
So I did an album recently. It's called Corporate Rule, and it's about how corporations rule America. And basically, we have these problems, all those problems about healthcare, housing, education, and childcare because it makes corporations money. The way it is, and that's why it's unaffordable, because corporations rule.
Perfect for us. That's absolutely right.
Children are the death of net worth. Pretty crude, but honestly very true.
This household configuration of dual income partners living alone without children is on the rise. In 2022, it was around 43% of households, and that's about a 7% increase from a decade previously.
In 2022, 43% of Americans surveyed said they'd want to get married, but just a little more than a quarter said they were sure about wanting children.
The term DINK is becoming more prominent now because of financial challenges, and they see children as just another financial challenge that...
Yeah, I mean, you can't, in America, you can't afford to have your cake or have children and save too. They have all these, like, they have this thing in America where all these rich people will tell you to stop drinking your coffee and put that in a money market account, and it won't be able to pay a month's rent in 10 years. Like, it doesn't help. Like, you can't, we've gotten to the point of the society where you can't afford to have children and save. It's like it has to be one or the other, where back in the boomers days, they could go get an education, have a car, and afford a house with part-time work. Even if you do have kids, you'll have to get them through American public schools with all the school shootings. So yeah, I don't blame people for not wanting to have kids.
Maybe they don't want to take on.
So what's it like to live with a dual income and no children? And will it be the future of American households? According to a 2023 survey of DINKs, finance played a major role in their decision to not have children. More than a quarter of respondents said they simply aren't able to financially support a child at the moment.
Yep.
When we advise clients about having children, we honestly don't even give them the full real details and the real numbers. It's one of those things, if you actually see the math of it all, it might make you decide to not have children.
It costs the family an estimate.
Basically, you can't, if you look at the numbers, most people don't look at the numbers. They just want a family and they make it work. But if you actually look at the numbers, you can't afford to have a child in America. Like, literally giving birth costs $10,000. There's no free childcare. There's no support from the government to give you health care. Childcare. And then it takes your whole check to work. And you need two incomes to make it. This is the dual income. You used to be able to have one person work and one person stay home. Now we can't do that because minimum wage has been delineated so far to the point where you can't afford to live off one income.
Made it $310,605 to raise a child born in 2015 to age 18, adjusted for higher future inflation. And that doesn't even include the cost of college.
So if you look at inflation within the child care market, it surpasses general overall inflation within the economy.
Some couples are contemplating having children at the same time that they're still paying.
They can't afford it. You can't afford to have it. Just because you're having kids doesn't mean you can't afford it. And you need dual income. And then where does the child go for childcare? And then we don't have childcare in America.
Off student loans that they incurred when they were 18 to 22 years old.
One of my very closest friends, she's been struggling with the reality that the take-home pay she makes is about equal to what childcare would be. That's a really hard position to be in.
Yep.
Seeing our friends really struggle with that balancing act has, I think, made me a...
So you basically have to be a dink in America. Like, it forces you to be a dink if you're in good conscience. Like, if you're a good person, you'll be a dink. Otherwise, you can't afford to have kids in America because we just don't account for that.
Appreciate the flexibility that we have financially because we don't have children.
Besides saving on childcare, DINKs can also fully reap the benefits of combining their finances.
To look at both of our incomes coming in and see how we're able to handle all of that because we don't have extra finances with a child, it's much more comfortable. We get to focus more on the things that we want to do and saving a lot of that money for the future and worry less about the day. So
basically, we understand in America that if you have kids, you don't deserve to save. That's what we're saying to our citizens. It's like, if you have kids, you don't deserve to have a decent lifestyle. That's what we're saying. That's the situation that we've created. And this is because minimum wage is no longer a living wage. Adam Smith, I don't want to hear any of this shit about how minimum wage isn't supposed to be a living wage. It's always meant to be a living wage. Adam Smith talks about it in The Wealth of Nations, and when FDR instituted the minimum wage, it was directly for the purposes of making a wage that is livable. So, so why aren't people having kids? Because they can't afford them.
Today finance.
So back in the boomers' day in the 70s, you could work a part-time job and still pay for school, a house, and a car. But now, because minimum wage hasn't kept up with inflation, it is no longer a living wage. In today's money, a minimum wage job back in the 70s used to be the equivalent of $100,000 back in the 70s. If you made $15 an hour, that was like the equivalent of $250,000 today. And a house used to cost $40,000, not $300,000.
Of the house and
So boomers literally didn't have to work as hard, changed the rules, could get a house and education for a part-time minimum wage job, and then made it impossible to live, and then claim millennials are lazy. No, you changed the rules. And what I want you to realize here is you have to go to farminghumans.com to realize that they've done this intentionally. The oligarchy has rigged the system through things like trickle-down economics and the Bush and Trump tax cuts with no social programs, to the point where it's starting to become despotism, where people can't afford to live and have their basic necessities met. So as the situation gets worse and the average person can't live, it's important to understand we saw this coming. Basically, it's the Republicans that put in the policies like trickle-down economics that has created this situation where people can't live or afford to have kids. And it was designed by the oligarchy to consolidate power and take away economic and political representation from the people. This is why America's a piece of shit.
bills.
Money isn't the only expense that DINKs can save on.
The free time is actually one of the biggest things for me. So we built me a little office / bedroom out here. We definitely have some more expensive hobbies. I build mechanical keyboards, like computer keyboards, in my spare time, and just parts and stuff for that can be very expensive.
Not having children has given us the freedom to pursue other things, remodeling our home. I'm a beekeeper.
I'm really handy and I like doing stuff around the house. I wouldn't have the time to just do that after work if I feel like it, if I had, a child to care for.
Fewer expenses leave DINKs with more disposable income to play with.
Disposable income is power, it's stability, and for many couples, it's security.
Which is why the oligarchy has taken it away from the average individual, so that they have to live in a state of constant survival. So they need a job, so they have to work a non-living wage paying job, so they basically get on the rat wheel and support the system without ever benefiting it. It benefits the oligarchy. It doesn't benefit the people.
The security that having 6 months of income saved for emergencies gives you, that security was so helpful to us during COVID when I was out of work for 6 months.
Have like a smaller tractor style. Next year we're gonna get a zero.
We have more tolerance for chaos, I think, because of our savings. Our new savings goal, which is like our...
They think in America, the oligarchy thinks you should be overworked and underpaid if you want to have children in America. That's America. That's why it's a piece of shit.
Shoot for the stars and hit the moon kind of is saving $4,000 a month.
According to census data, DINKs can save 9% more for retirement each year compared to dual-income couples with children. Another 2021 study found that childless adults aged 55 and older had a personal median net worth of $153,900.
So the whole capitalism is based off labor. If you want to protest capitalism, a great way to do it is by not having kids. So they're actually shooting themselves in the foot by doing all this because people don't want to have kids and it won't support the labor market.
Dollars compared to $100,000.
Which is why you force them into it with despotism by not paying them a living wage, so they always have to strive to survive, and it gives the extracted labor worth to the capitalists.
$1,400 for biological parents.
If you have $1 and if you have to choose how to use it, a DINK can prioritize savings, retirements, investments, both in the equities market as well as things like real estate or second properties.
See, the hardest part of investing is just having the cash to do it. And so when you don't have your cash going to expenses that are related to children, that cash can go into those investment goals.
We
go and go and go and go. But what if you stop? We think you've earned an advantage. EverBank Performance Savings is built to put your money to work with high yields. EverBank. Advantage you.
We started investing in our early 20s. I feel really safe because we have this strong nest egg of ETFs that are accessible and fairly liquid. And then we also...
America doesn't believe the average individual deserves this. And they need this to be able to fund their lifestyle, because we pay for out of pocket what other countries pay for in taxes. But we don't tax the rich, we tax the working people and give tax breaks to the wealthy.
Have our long-term savings, which are, tied up in IRAs. We can choose what our aging years look like because we've saved to plan for that eventuality.
It is well documented that the younger you are when you start your savings in your retirement portfolio, the better off you are in the long run in terms of aggregate savings and your ability to accrue.
In this economy, I have videos on farminghumans.com, the YouTube playlist, how people you can't afford to save in this economy. Like, even if you can make it, you don't have disposable income, and you especially don't have money to save. That's America.
Savings and wealth.
Just take the $310,605 it would take for a middle-income married family to raise a child. While child expenses can vary significantly by age and location, that could easily represent more than $15,000 in otherwise investable funds per year. Consider the power of annually compounding interest. And that $15,000 per year can grow to more than $500,000 in just 18 years, assuming 7% annual returns. This nest egg could also help DINKs secure more assets for themselves.
Dual earner adults living together who both have jobs and have been saving are really able to put a heftier, relatively large down payment on a home, which then reduces their monthly mortgage.
Again, this is why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, because they have the means and access to accrue that capital, while others get left behind because they're busy paying for expenses of merely living. You can't get ahead in America because it doesn't pay enough for you to merely live.
And has all of these other benefits. You're paying less interest over the long run.
I was fortunate enough to have a good little nest egg gifted to me by my grandparents, and that helped us buy our first house. But then
there's like $3 trillion in passing down through wealth that the boomers are going to give to the millennials in the next 20 years. Yeah.
From there, living in that house, living in a place with a lower cost of living like Utah, having dual income helped us build all this savings so that when we sold that home and moved to Massachusetts, we had an even larger nest egg that allowed us to buy a more expensive home in a higher cost of living area. I'm not totally sure where we would be if we had a child as well.
That extends beyond just purchasing a home. There are lots of big item, big ticket investments that we tend to make earlier on in adulthood. To the extent that we can pay as much of it as possible up front, that does have a rippling benefit for us as we age.
But the rise of DINKs isn't such great news for the economy as a whole. Historically, lower birth rates have been associated with slower
slower economic growth because you don't have the labor power to build the economy. It all works off of, you need two things, materials and labor. And if you don't have labor, you're not expanding, you're not working, you're not being productive. So you can protest America's unaffordability to live by not having kids. So I think more DINKs should happen, and it's going to happen because it has to happen because people can't afford to have kids.
Economic growth. And critical social programs such as Social Security depend heavily on population growth.
We shouldn't strive to have a generation of young adults that are not reproducing. That would not be healthy for society. It wouldn't be healthy for the...
But that's the economic conditions in which you have created and why I support it. It's basically a protest to not support the capitalism that has been implemented and has been overtaken by the oligarchy.
Economy, it wouldn't be healthy for us as we age.
None of these videos will tell you that the oligarchy did this intentionally to take away your political and economic representation, which is what is happening.
So there are a lot of reasons why we do want to take investments in the next generation seriously.
For DINKs, the biggest challenges are often not financial.
And I think we freaked a lot of people out when we were just a young married couple, and that was all. There was no baby afterwards. I had family members asking if something was wrong because it's been 5 years of a young, healthy couple not producing a child.
I think that there is a self-care aspect that is minimized when you're a DINK. So there are many mom groups or, daddy-daughter dances. There aren't groups for, hey, I'm a professional woman and I just want to go home and read a book and take care of myself tonight.
I think on the other side of that, there can be times where in certain circumstances and circles, it's harder to make friends.
There is also the potential for more financial responsibility from other family members.
There could be additional pressure as DINKs get older for people within their family to assume that they can take care of certain obligations. For example, if you have an aging parent, DINKs might be the ones that are relied upon because it's presumed you have disposable income or you have disposable time to take on these responsibilities.
According to experts, the number one advice for DINKs is to prioritize savings and figure out clear goals for the future.
If anybody is considering...
So the number one recommendation is the recommendation you can't obtain for the average American because expenses aren't livable in America.
Becoming a DINK. As a financial planner, I highly recommend that strategy. I recommend it to my clients. When my clients tell me that's an intentional choice they're going to make, I am a big fan of it.
With that disposable income, make a budget. How do you want to spend it? Make sure you put aside some money for fun, but also make sure you put aside some money for investments, and they can be traditional or non-traditional investments, and then revisit it annually to make sure it still makes sense.
I think if you're considering not having children in your life, make sure your partner's on the same page as you and that you have confidence in that value in isolation without your partner too.
Yeah. Don't go into the DINK lifestyle just like, I don't have kids, so I just have more money and can do whatever. It still takes the work of planning for your future, putting money away.
Most Americans can't get the first step. They work so hard just to be able to save, and they can't because the expenses are too much in America. Again, housing, healthcare, education, and childcare are all unaffordable in America.
Hey, if you're not going to have kids, make sure you still save money for your future because the world is a weird place right now, and who knows what it's going to be like in another 30, 40 years when we go to retire.
Okay, I just want to say, I just want to give a little illumination of my personal situation. I live on disability. I had a job, but it paid $12 an hour, and I was working 6 days a week for like $650 a month, so I quit. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth the mental anguish that I put myself through. I didn't like the job. I would get another job, but basically there's nothing but fast food, so there's no opportunity where I live. I am on the waiting list to move to Kalamazoo, but I have been on the waiting list for years. Otherwise, I would have a job that would contribute to my music or do something like contribute to savings. But I can't get there because America is a piece of shit only designed for the rich. And I explained why in this video. So it would be a shame if the people that caused this, that Earth's sixth mass, it would be a shame if the people that caused the Earth's sixth mass extinction got their children fucked to death because it would get results. That's all I want to say. That's it. This will be on my YouTube. Visit farminghumans.com. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of my family. You're awesome. I love you very much. Until next time, you take care, all right?